Brothers and sisters, in our second reading today, St. Paul reminds us that we walk by faith and not by sight. Our other two readings today use images that remind us of that. In our first reading, the prophet Ezekiel speaks of faith like a tall cedar tree on the top of a mountain, sheltering the birds and the wildlife. By contrast to that, in our gospel today, Jesus talks about faith like a mustard seed, the smallest seed, he says. I didn't realize how small a mustard seed was until yesterday. Father Joy had bought some mustard seeds, and I put one right there. Now that's about the size of it. Imagine your finger, imagine that the center there of your finger, little bitty grain of sand sized seed. That's a mustard seed. Well, there were some contrasting stories that I had of faith that I thought illustrated those two images. A cedar of faith was Maximilian Kolbe. Maximilian Kolbe was a priest in Poland when World War II broke out and the Nazis overran Poland. Father Maximilian was arrested and taken to Auschwitz. That was because the Nazis were not only persecuting Jews, but they were also persecuting other faiths, including Catholics. Father Kolbe underwent many privations and difficulties while he was imprisoned in Auschwitz. And then on one occasion, one of the prisoners had escaped from the death camp. And so the guards rounded up 10 people that they were going to take and put in cells and starve to death as an example to the others to prevent any further escapes. The rest of the camp was in attendance. As they were being taken to their cells, one of the men cried out, "My poor wife, my poor children." Maximilian Kolbe stepped forward and said, "I'll take that man's place." So Maximilian Kolbe and 9 others were taken to their cells. After 2 weeks of starvation, the other 9 had perished. But Father Maximilian Kolbe was still alive. And so the guards put him to death by lethal injection. In 1980, Father Maximilian Kolbe was canonized as a saint by Pope St. John Paul II and is honored today as a saint. The man whose life he saved survived the war and was returned to his family. Now, the opposite of that cedar of faith that was St. Maximilian Kolbe was a man named Oskar Schindler. Oskar Schindler was a Catholic, but it would have been hard-pressed for anyone to see his faith in action. It was the size of a mustard seed. Oskar Schindler was a member of the Nazi Party. In fact, he had signed up for an organization called the Abwehr, where he was a spy, an information gatherer for the Nazis. He was a playboy. He enjoyed luxury and the finer things of life. And he saw the war coming and had determined that he was going to profit from it. He was an industrialist, and he wanted to make as much money off of the war as he could. So he established a factory in Poland making kits for the Russian soldiers, food kits. And he established it there in Poland because he was able to acquire very cheap labor from the Polish Jews who were rounded up and put to work. This would increase his profits. Over the course of time, he came to realize that Hitler's final solution was the extermination of the Jews in the Holocaust. And he began to try and save as many Jews as he could from the extermination camps. He would employ them in his factory where they had an exemption. In the end, he was able to save 1,200 people. He did so by taking all of that money that he had earned and using it in bribes and black market dealings so that he could go without notice and continue to shelter the Jews. These two examples, brothers and sisters, are the epitome of the gospel. On the one hand, you would say, well, St. Maximilian Kolbe, he saved one life. Oskar Schindler, he saved 1,200 lives. Then again, on the one hand, you would say, Father Kolbe gave his life for that one life. Oskar Schindler, while he ended up bankrupt, poor, and survived basically on the generosity of the families of the 1,200 people he had saved, did not give his life. But you see, that's the thing about faith. It doesn't balance numbers. It doesn't measure the cost. Faith simply acts. It sees and it acts. St. Teresa, the little flower, used to say in her diary that it's the little things that we can do, the small acts of love, compassion, the kind word said in the course of a day, the consoling hug that is given, the smile that is offered. Those are the ways we can daily show our faith to the world. And it doesn't take being caught up in a great cataclysm of a world war. And those things make a difference. Those small acts of faith also make a difference in people's lives. So whether our faith is as tall and high as a great cedar or as small as the little mustard seed, our faith put into action can do great things. Jesus would say, with such faith, even the size of a mustard seed, we could root trees in the ocean, move mountains. I think there's probably a better use for such faith than magically moving mountains. It's showing God's love, compassion, and kindness to one another. And that can be done, again, brothers and sisters, whether our faith is great as a cedar or small as a mustard seed.